Carole Forster saw a UFO. So did Roger Weber and Philip Imbrogno. Although Tom Weber has never seen one, he believes they're out there, and he wants them to come on down. You see, Tom, along with other residents of Elmwood, Wisconsin, is proposing to build an airport there. An airport strictly for UFOs. The town, it seems, is one of those UFO hotspots. And Tom and his group want the aliens to know that they are welcome in Elmwood. Just think of it. Pan-alien airways. Coffee, tea, and E.T. A UFO airport is the focus of this edition of Geraldo. Thank you. For some unknown reason, there are UFO hotspots, places like Texarkana, Pittsburgh, the Hudson Valley of New York State, and of course, Elmwood, Wisconsin. All places where there have been an unusually high incidence of UFO sightings. Now, some of the so-called close encounters, let's face it, may just be a lot of bunk. But on the other hand, an awful lot of them are reported by teachers, cops, farmers, and other solid citizens. All folks who say UFOs may be here sooner than you think.
We shall send to the moon, 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
President John F. Kennedy was a man of vision who could bring his dreams into concrete reality. Tom Weber hopes to be another such man. When reading Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he found a goal.
A full-blown relationship with this advanced society that has been observing man for many years and reap the benefits thereof.
Weber is planning to build a 2-square-mile concrete landing strip for UFOs, the world's first alien airport. The site, Elmwood, Wisconsin. Why Elmwood? Well, because the UFOs are apparently there. Over 100 sightings by local residents.
When it got over the village, and it was gone out of sight. I said, well, that's not the moon. I said, that's coming too fast. I said, that's one of them.
You're looking at a possible UFO, sighted in New York's Hudson Valley. Like Elmwood, the Hudson Valley is one of the several global hotspots for UFO sightings. And Weber is getting us all ready for their arrival.
Somewhere in the vicinity of Elmwood is where it's going to be.
Let us share Weber's vision for a moment. What are the practical implications of an actual alien airport? I mean, right now, they can only lose your luggage somewhere on Earth. What happens in 2001 when the computer baggage handler tells you,
I'm sorry, Dave. You can't have your baggage now. It's on Mars. It can be forwarded to you within the next solar year. Have a nice day.
And you'll be spinning in your space transport when you hear,
Attention passengers, we are now entering a zero-gravity zone. Please refrain from using the laboratory facilities until reaching the planet Neptune. Have a nice day.
Remember, in space, no one can hear you scream. And how about missing a connecting flight?
Attention passengers, Pan-Alien Airlines Flight 205, connecting flight from the moon to Earth, has been canceled.
In point of fact, it must be noted that NASA is making serious efforts to listen to and possibly contact alien civilizations. These giant radio telescopes in California and Puerto Rico are listening to signals from space, which could be a natural phenomenon or could be something more. And NASA's Voyager spacecraft have found that one of Saturn's moons, Titan, does have an atmosphere which could support organic life. The Voyagers are also equipped with a special message from then-President Jimmy Carter and sounds of our culture addressed to whom it may concern.
In case the Voyagers encounter a cosmic neighbor along the way, these sounds of Earth, including the music of Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, the sound of a whale, of rain, heartbeats, and laughter, have been permanently etched into the grooves of a special copper record, along with 115 photographs and diagrams depicting our civilization.
NASA has its methods, Tom Weber has his. He's busy raising money in the Elmwood area to make his alien airport dream a reality.
Suppose they got any women up there?
Well, we'll find out.
Okay, here he is, Tom Weber, the president of the newly established UFO Site Center Corporation, based in Chippewa Falls near Elmwood, Wisconsin. Sitting next to Tom is Larry Feeler. He is the mayor of the town, and by all accounts, he supports Tom's efforts to build an alien airport there. Here's Larry. Carole Forster and Roger Weber are among the many residents of Elmwood who say they have seen a UFO. While Doris Wheeler's husband, now deceased, was a non-believing Elmwood policeman until he had his own UFO experiences. Okay, welcome Elmwood. Roger and Carole, let's start with you because you say you have actually seen a UFO. Tell me, Carole, what did you see?
Okay, this was 13 years ago, March 2nd, 1975. I was 8 months pregnant. I had my 3 small children, 4, 5, and 8, in a car. I was leaving my parents' home. My husband wasn't with me. He was snowmobiling with friends, which I couldn't do at that time. As I came out of the driveway from my parents' home, I noticed to the west there was a bright star, lower than a star usually is, but we watched it. I drove 12 miles home, and no matter which direction I went, the star was positioned in my driver's window, lower than a star. When I turned straight west to take the last 3 miles home, it seemed to be coming lower. At that point, it was straight in front of me. It no longer was in the driver's window.
Was it still just a bright star, or could you
It was still a bright star, but it seemed to be descending. But I thought maybe it was an optical illusion at the time. We went over this little knoll, and the children started screaming that they thought the star was coming down out of the sky. And I almost stopped at the first farmer's driveway, and I thought, no, what am I going to tell him? There's a star coming down out of the sky. I thought I'd just keep going. So I kept going on down the road. Roger's mother lives in a farm home to the left. I almost stopped there again, but I didn't. We could tell that it was getting lower. I passed that driveway. A little ways up the road, there was a road to the right. Then there was a long stretch of nothing, no farm homes, nothing. Just as I passed that road, this ship came down like a shot, just like a shot. All of a sudden, there it was in front of me. It was the level of the windshield. I saw the landing gear. It wasn't like an airplane's landing gear. It was flat.
We have a sketch of what it was.
Yes. There was windows across the entire center of this ship, or whatever it was. It looked like something really out of a comic book, like 2 cereal bowls together. Of course, I only looked at it for a couple seconds because I was terrified. My 3 children were just screaming. I didn't hear any sound from the ship, but I don't think I would have anyway. They were screaming, and somehow automatically I shifted the car into reverse and threw open my door because it was dark, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to see to back up, headed for Roger's mother's driveway and some help. Then my oldest daughter, who was 8, started screaming that it was coming at us. I glanced back, and it was darting toward us, just small darts. So I laid on my horn while I was driving backwards. Then I asked Mary about it afterwards because I could tell I was getting light and dark all at the same time. She said...
Mary, your child?
She's the daughter, 8. She said it seemed then like it was one huge light bulb, and it kept flashing on and off.
Roger, how'd you get involved?
Well, when Carole got into the driveway at my mother's house, we've seen this car drive in, and all at once the door flew open, and in come 3 little kids, and it wasn't long Carole come in, and these children were really frightened. I mean, they're small kids, and their eyes were just bugged out, and they were really scared.
Did you just see the children and Carole, or did you see the ship itself?
No, I seen just the children and Carole. And then, at that time, then we finally talked the children into leaving again with their mother. And, well, first, before that, I took my 2 children and went out to see if I could see this thing and drove my car up the road a little ways. And I didn't see anything at that point then. Came back, and so then got Carole's children to go with her again, and then she started out again and got about to this same point in the road again, and back she come again. And in the house they come flying again. And these children had never been at this house or anything, but they wasn't staying in the car anymore. They were frightened. And then there was no way they was going to go back out with their mother and go. And so finally we talked to them, and I said if I went with my car ahead of them, would they go with their mother and go?
What happened?
So then we got them to go. I went out ahead of them, and as I drove out the driveway and got to this point in the road again where it came down in front of her, I looked up in the sky and saw this bright light up like a bright star again, like she explained it.
Is it similar to what Carole described?
Yes, you saw? Right. Only I didn't see the shape of it, just this bright star part of it.
Doris, tell me what your husband saw.
My husband had two sightings. The first one he saw, he was patrolling on the outside, on the outskirts of Elmwood, and he saw this huge object coming towards him. He said, he described it as a cigar-shaped thing, but he said had you been looking down from above, it would have looked more like a saucer.
Okay. We have a sketch of that. Why don't we show Doris's husband, the patrolman's sighting. What else, Doris?
Then he said that the thought occurred to him that what it possibly was a big airplane that was going to crash in Elmwood. He jumped out of the police car and dove in the ditch. And it passed over him without any sound of any kind at all. There was no sound connected with it.
Let me interrupt you there, Doris. I want the camera to get a shot of these three people right here. Roger, Carole, and Doris. These are sober citizens. They're not on any drugs. Your husband wasn't a drunk or anything, was he? They are not kooks, and yet they tell these incredible stories, all stories of Elmwood, Wisconsin. Larry is the mayor of Elmwood. Tom seeks to build there a landing strip for alien craft. We'll explore this bizarre and extraordinary proposal. We'll talk more to the citizens of Elmwood. First, we take this break. We'll be right back. We are here to discuss the rather extraordinary proposal by many of the good citizens of Elmwood, Wisconsin, to build a landing strip there for unidentified flying objects, spaceships. Doris, in the case of your husband, his contact with the UFO went beyond merely sighting it, though.
Yes, this was the first sighting I described.
The second sighting?
The second sighting was that I should explain first, I suppose, that Elmwood is a little town that's built in a valley. And he was down below, and he looked up on top of one of the hills. It's surrounded by hills. And he saw this bright light, and he thought it was a fire. So he drove to the top of the hill, and when he got up there, I have a scanner in my home, and I heard him exclaim, "My God, it's another UFO." Then I heard nothing more, and of course it frightened me. I got out of bed, went up to the top of the hill. When I got up there, there was one other car there, and he was leaning against the car. He was very dazed, and one of the things we discovered afterwards, they could not start the police car again. They had just had new points and plugs put in it, and they were completely burnt out. I took him in my car down to see our local doctor, Frank Springer, and he went to the hospital. He was there for 2 weeks. They had brain scans, they had everything. There was nothing the matter with him, except our doctor said there's something there that had to frighten him. He could not have bluffed this.
Mr. Mayor, approximately how many of the good people of Elmwood, Wisconsin have come to you and said they have seen UFOs? How many sightings?
I would say, Geraldo, lately we probably had 25 to 30 people in the past that had expressed this. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've had many, many more people that have come forward and said, yes, that I had noticed this light in the sky or had seen.
Now, is this mass hysteria, or is this people jumping on the bandwagon, or do you believe this to be a legitimate phenomenon people are reporting to you?
No, very, very legitimate. They're good, sound, reputable people, and we have times that there's sightings of 2 or 3 people will have it at one time, and they can identify the same location from different areas.
Why would the UFOs, let's assume for a second that everything that we're hearing is the literal truth, at least as reported by sincere, honest people, what they saw. Why are they picking your little town in Wisconsin?
Not sure, Geraldo, what it would be other than in the past years, in talking with different people that have studied these and interviewed people that had sightings over the years, that they seem to wonder if possibly in the Elmwood area there's a large deposits of limestone. And they seem to have found, as they have interviewed these people from around the world, that that can sometimes is kind of a common trait, that they find limestone. Another thing they talk about is electrical high lines, transformer lines, transmission lines. And in the area that Doris discussed of her husband's sighting, there was a large lime quarry plus an electrical high line that went over the top of the quarry.
Larry, a lot of people are frightened to death of this whole subject. I mean, aside from the fact that they are afraid of being branded nuts, they are also afraid, if it's true, that the darn things will come and visit them. I mean, do we understand that the people of Elmwood would welcome aliens to come on down?
I think what we have is a situation to where the UFO conversation in the Elmwood area is very, very common. In other words, we know that there's the people that are talking about that have witnessed a sighting and this sort of thing are very, very solid people. The part, I think there's two, you can identify fear in two ways. I think one is the fear, if I was to observe one right now, I would definitely have fear. On the other side of the coin, looking at the broad picture of it, I feel that it's a situation that the people in the Elmwood area feel that if we had something to fear, we definitely could have had damage done by now.
Larry, you going to run on the pro-UFO ticket next time? Tom, you're going beyond that. You are proposing, do I understand, a 2-square-mile concrete landing area complete with landing lights to be manned 24 hours a day by scientists?
If that's my key, I can finally go ahead and say something here, Geraldo. Thank you, first of all, for inviting us and allowing us the opportunity to tell our story. There are certain questions that immediately come to everyone's mind. What is this thing going to look like, and why do you suppose that they will come here as opposed to anywhere else on the globe?
Those are two good questions to start.
So, first of all, we intend, if you can envision in your mind's eye and position yourself aloft, we are talking about an approximate 2-square-mile area. Now, envision in your mind's eye that this would be bordered in lights. And then within this light compound, we will be sending a visual message, again, that is visible from aloft.
What would that message be? Just
okay, we have no...
not MTV or anything, I'm just...
We have no doubt, for instance, that we can represent mankind in a warm and welcoming manner. That will be easy. We're going to lean real heavy on these experiences that you have recently heard about. And in that regard, we have good, sound diagrams and drawings of what this higher intelligence travels about in. We know what their crafts look like. And we rather suspect that they will be intelligent enough that if they see one of these displayed in a landing mode, that they will recognize it as their own particular craft.
Is that the answer to the second part of the question? Why they would choose Elmwood? Why they are, the people in Elmwood say, choosing Elmwood already?
Well, our opinion, and again, a lot of evaluation and study has gone into this, but if I could ask the viewing audience for a moment to just reverse the roles and let's extend our own space programs many years hence, perhaps we would be in that position where we were making contact with an evolving life form that was somewhat behind us. How would we then proceed? I don't think we would land in one of their cities and begin walking the streets. I think it would be a long, protracted program where we would view and learn of them via our instrumentation, for instance, and then we would pick and choose those moments when we would show our presence for our own safety, and we would go about it in this manner, and we see that happening now, and we would wait for the invitation, and this is the fundamental backbone of our approach. It's time for the invitation, and we're going to give it.
Okay, let's talk more about the invitation to the aliens and the UFOs up there. First, we have to take another break.
My question is, have you ever communicated with a UFO before, and how would you communicate in order for them to land, besides, you know, verbally?
Is that for me?
Sure.
I've never had a sighting. I believe those who have are placing a lot of stake on what these people in Elmwood have said.
Meaning you don't know how, the question was, how will you do it? I mean, what
it's going to be a visual message to invite them down. Now, if your question is, do you anticipate a language problem or something of that nature, we intend to staff the center with scientific people. No one from our group aspires to be man's representatives to this advanced society. This will be done by scientists who are much more qualified than we are.
What I would like to know is, how is the community going to finance such an undertaking of 2 square miles of concrete going in each direction? I'm sure the depth has to be a great many feet. So the expense of all this...
How much, Tom?
First of all, that's a misconcept. That notion appeared in one of the newspapers. We're not talking about 2 square miles of poured concrete. We're talking about 2 square miles that is secured. Then within that secured area will be our buildings, and then also the lights that transmit
How
a
much do
visual
you
message.
budget?
We're hoping to raise somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million. Half of this to go for the property and the site center itself. The other half we'd like to secure so that we can stay in business for about 30 or 40 years.
How will you raise the money?
Okay, thank you for that question. Without public support, this is not going to happen. And we're also hopeful that there will be some individuals in our society with excellent recognition by the public who will have an interest in this and who will step forth. And the time to help us is right now. We need the help. But it's going to be no government funds sought or accepted.
My question is to Carole. Carole, how did your children, after this experience, deal with the emotional effects of their experience? And also, how does the school district of this town deal with this issue?
Okay.
Is it something that is dealt with?
My children were terrified, and for this reason, I haven't said anything hardly at all for 13 years. News reporters and everyone have come, and I've turned them away. Once in a great while, I'll talk to someone. But my oldest daughter will be 22 in a couple months, and when she heard I was coming today, she said, "Mom, don't tell them my married name." They were frightened. At night, I turned on all the lights in the house. For weeks, they slept in the living room. She had a room of her own, and she didn't want it anymore. If they had to go out to the kitchen for a lunch or to the bathroom, one of us had to go with them. I couldn't get them to go out of the house at night. And I didn't call anyone and report it because I thought they would tell me I was crazy. So...
I believe in UFOs because we've seen evidence of it in Texas. I'd like to know, with your welcoming mat and your plans, what sort of airport hotel accommodations, so to speak, for these so-called bodies when they emerge. What are your plans to accommodate them?
Well, right now we don't have any housing plans for them per se. We do have housing plans for the scientists and so on that will be there. What we suspect that if they so desire that, why we'll do everything we can to accommodate their needs in that area, but we don't know for sure what they will be. We do, though, believe that they have a physical structure similar to ours, for instance, and one of the reasons for desiring the contact has to do with the benefits for humanity. That's my personal motivation. We believe there would be enormous benefits in the field of medicine, all of the sciences, the big philosophical questions that man has wrestled with for how long. We'd like their opinions. Wouldn't you? I would.
The faces that you show pictures of them, what make you think they look like that? Like us?
Why do you think they are sort of, 2 legs, 2 arms, even though the eyes are usually described as different shaped, yeah.
Is that directed to me, ma'am?
Yeah. Or anyone who cares to answer.
Obviously, I don't have any first-hand knowledge or experience thereof, but there are people who have claimed to have had face-to-face confrontations. And I suppose if you want to move past speculation, you have to start believing what they have said. And we have some consistent data in that regard with what they do look like. And many of you have seen the drawings, I'm sure, in various newspapers and so on. But generally the arms, the legs, a narrow slit for a mouth, the large eyes, and I don't have any information that's inconsistent with that, but again, we're putting a lot of stake on these people from Elmwood, what they have seen. They're our neighbors. They're 40 to 50 miles from Chippewa Falls, where we're from, And none of them have come forth and said that we've seen them, we know what they look like. So we don't have anything in that area.
Okay. Let's talk about another UFO hotspot, the Hudson Valley in the state of New York, upstate New York, after this break. Larry, the mayor, and the good people of Elmwood are still with us. They have moved to the front row to make room for our next guests. They come from that other, or one other, natural hotspot for UFO sightings, the New York Hudson Valley region. Philip Imbrogno is a science coordinator. He has investigated UFOs for the last 15 years, and in his book, Night Siege, the Hudson Valley UFO sightings, says there has been an outbreak or an epidemic of sightings in the Hudson Valley area beginning about 1983. Sitting next to him is Chris Clark. He is a local resident, also a newsman, a reporter, who with a number of other witnesses believes he has seen a UFO in the area. Gentlemen, before I get to the Hudson Valley, it occurred to me, Tom, during the commercial break that all those air traffic controllers who are out of work could go right to your town. It's a great spot. I'd like to know, before we get to New York, what would you do? Let's say the day, the great day, has arrived. The ship has sighted the small village of Elmwood, Wisconsin. It has seen your welcome mat, and it's come down and landed in your area. What do you say? Let's say you're the guy there. And
well,
the
if
first
I'm privileged to be there, I'm sure I would cautiously approach, and my anticipation would be that I would be eventually greeted by a very moral, intelligent, friendly person, and
he would say, "What's happening, man?"
Well, if that was the way he wanted to go about it, I'd go right along with it. But seriously, I believe that that day is coming, that it will happen. And how long would they want to stay? We intend to have a secure place there. Would anyone else care to come out of the ship? Can we come out with some of our cameras? One of our goals, of course, is to have full camera facilities, capabilities there, so we can bring this entire matter worldwide live on television.
Philip, what do you think of the idea?
Don't come there, we'll come to you. So,
what do you think?
Well,
as a man who has seen how many yourself?
Well, I had one particular sighting in the Hudson Valley, by the way, when I was researching the information for the book. There are a lot of people in the scientific field who are now investigating UFOs. Unfortunately, they do not get the attention that they deserve, and this causes them to shy away from the study of the phenomena. We hear a lot of romantic stories about greeting aliens and so, and this is the type of material that's getting the attention. And unfortunately, I don't think it gives the phenomena, a serious scientific study of the phenomena, any credit.
Tell me what you saw.
Well, on March 21st, 1985, I was at the University of Bridgeport doing a cable TV show. And I was with two other people who were doing the show with me. And previous years, there were quite a few sightings in that area, including New York and the Connecticut area. As I was coming out of the campus, I noticed a number of bright lights hovering over a building. And they were a circular pattern of lights. And I continued to walk onto the campus, got into the car, and drove toward where the lights were. I got out of the car near Highway 95, near exit 26, I believe, in Bridgeport.
Connecticut Turnpike.
Connecticut Turnpike. And I saw these lights, very bright, about 7 of them, hovering in the sky in a circular pattern. Now, I lined these lights up with a lamppost.
Describe what we're seeing, the videotape. We have gone to the videotape.
Okay, this videotape was taken in 1984 by a resident of Brewster.
Is that similar to what you saw?
It's very similar, the circular area. And this was heading toward the southwest. This was July 24th, 1984 at about 10:20 p.m. And what he described was a circular pattern of lights. And when he was videotaping it, there were hundreds of other sightings in the Hudson Valley that reported the same object, people who stood right under it. And I must say that approximately 10 or 15 minutes later, this object was reported hovering over the nuclear plant at Indian Point.
What was it, Philip?
Well, I wish I knew what it was, but I interviewed the New York State Power Authority police officers at Indian Point. They reported that it hovered above reactor number 3 for 15 minutes. It was 900 feet long, and it was a solid structure.
Now, 900 feet
That's
long,
right.
the size of an ocean liner.
That's right. And there's more to that sighting than meets the eye. Unfortunately, they have very tight security, but they did confirm that they had a UFO sighting, and that was published in the local newspaper.
The lady here has a question.
The federal government years ago had an investigation with UFOs. Have you contacted anyone in the government about this?
Well, actually, the co-author of my book, Night Siege, was the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was the scientific consultant for the Air Force's Project Blue Book for 20 years. That was the government's investigation project into UFOs.
I'd just like to know, what is it about the Hudson Valley area that attracts aliens? Is it the nuclear power plant, do you think?
Well, I wish I knew. I wish I can say absolutely that they were aliens. But the people in the Hudson Valley are saying absolutely there's something strange in the skies. And they're not saying it's a spaceship from another world, but it seems that the federal government and the federal agencies are turning a deaf ear to them, telling them that they're seeing stars, planets, airplanes, and so on.
Chris, you tell us what you saw. We'll talk about UFO sightings around the world. First, we've got to take another break. Roger, let me ask you, when you hear a guy like Philip describing what he saw, a scientist, does it give you comfort that he saw something like you saw, even though it was a different craft, that maybe people will not think that you're a nut?
Okay, I guess I was really enthused to hear what he had to say, because I had seen the second sighting, which was very similar to what he said, in the circular lights. But it wasn't 900 feet long, and I would presume there was 8 or 9 lights in it, and these were traveling in a circle, and the whole circle would move.
My point is, really, does it make you feel good when you hear other stories like yours?
Yes. I'm not the only nut.
Chris, tell me briefly what you saw.
Well, my sighting goes back to October 29th of '87, and my involvement began with writing a freelance article where I interviewed Phil and became very interested in the people that I met when doing the story. That brought me to work with Phil, and that night I drove out on Route 84. It was a Thursday night, and the subject has been...
Another highway in upstate
Right,
New
right.
York.
Route 84 going west. 8:24 p.m. for successive Thursday nights, a object looking very similar to the video that we saw earlier was seen in this area. I pulled over on the side of the road at about 8:15 and waited, and sure enough, at 8:24, 5 or 6 lights emerged from a wooded area off to the side of the road and did sort of a dance as they joined together into a triangular shape. Once they joined together into that shape, they moved off very slowly and very quietly until they were lost behind a hill. And that's basically it. A whole group of people that night were also...
Is this it, what we're looking at here?
These are drawings that were made in 1983. They're describing the very first sightings that took place.
But it is what you saw, more or less.
Very similar. This boomerang shape, as it's been
Philip,
dubbed.
is it what you saw, more or less?
Well, you see, the Hudson Valley sightings sometimes are boomerang shaped, sometimes circular shaped. If you would shut off the lights on an ellipse, it would look like a boomerang. So,
right.
You know, we're not looking at the thing with all the lights on.
Jim Spicer, a UFO investigator who runs Paranet, that's a UFO computer information network. It reports on UFO sightings and investigations throughout the world. He joins us now. Jim, I saw with considerable interest a very well-publicized sighting in Australia. Why don't you tell us about that?
Right. January 20th, I believe it was.
Of this year?
Of this year. A recent sighting, early in the morning, I believe between 4 and 4:30. 4 people driving in a car between Perth and Melbourne, Australia. Driving along, a lady with her 3 sons saw an object that resembled what they described as an egg cup turned upside down. Came from behind their car. When it was over their car, they got the sensation that the car was actually being physically picked up off the ground, dropped from a height. There was an explosion, a blowout of a tire. Later on, these people were tremendously scared, obviously. They ran out of the car, and they saw the object land on the road in front of them. It took off, and they got back in the car. But the interesting thing was it blew out a tire, and also when they were being raised up in the car, they heard their voices as if they were distorted or undergoing slow motion, as if they were talking into some special effects microphone. This was also reported by people 15 minutes later on a fishing trawler 50 miles away. the same sort of object. Now, we don't know if it was the same description of the object, but the vocal distortion.
We have some videotape that you've provided. Why don't we show that? And you describe it. No, we don't have videotape.
It's not videotape. This is just an example of, this is a photograph that was taken in Victoria Island, British Columbia, 1981. It's an example of the type of photograph. You can't really see anything spectacular there, but the lady who photographed it didn't even see the object when she was photographing it. It only came out later. It's not a scratch in the emulsion. It is definitely an object that is there. It's an example of a photograph that has been scientifically analyzed and shown to be a definite metallic sort of object. This is the kind of thing that we'd like to really spend our scientific dollars on, figuring out what these things are.
I would like to ask the gentleman, do you have any idea from where those UFOs are coming from?
Save the answer. We have to take a break. Where are they coming from? After this break. Jim or Philip, where are they coming from?
I wish we knew. If we had more scientific analysis dollars and more funding, I think we might be able to find out.
How many a year are cited?
Anywhere from a low of 300 or 400 a year that are officially reported, anywhere up to 1,500, sometimes 5,000 a year.
Now, how many of that total can be considered legitimate sightings, like people from Elmwood, you know, so
we're
middle-of-the-road people?
We have found that the rate is about 10%. 90% of all UFO reports can be explained usually as meteors, airplanes, things like that, but that 10% is very important.
You made two comments about dollars and how you wanted the dollars spent. Do I take in that a veiled reference that you hope the dollars are not spent on Tom's landing site?
I would hope that any dollars that are left over, or any dollars that we can possibly raise, would first go to scientific analysis. And I wouldn't want to take anything away from Tom's project, but I think it's more important that we figure out what's going on first.
You don't think they'll land in Elmwood?
I have no reason to believe that they would.
Well, probably Elmwood over Times Square or where.
Have any physical injuries been reported by people who have seen UFOs?
Well, Doris's husband.
And they never come out with anything definite. They checked him for 2 weeks in the hospital. He had horrible nightmares for months afterwards, wake up screaming in the night. But they checked him for, he was afraid of radiation.
There's a lady over here who's nodding her head in a very skeptical way. Here, what's it?
I want to know how many real videotape sightings you have.
Well, we have...
Videotape sightings, are you sure of them? It could be somebody in a black room with 5 light bulbs, you know?
I can...
Go ahead, Chris, Philip.
I can answer that. The videotape that you saw was analyzed twice by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of Pasadena, California. Now, they determined that this is a large object and it's one solid object, and that they could not identify it. And you're talking about the top imaging scientists in our country.
Okay, but still. Could I put something in on that, please? I would like to say that the sightings from the people from Elmwood had nothing to do with anybody circling light bulbs around there. They were 50 feet away and stationary.
This is to the mayor of Elmwood. What percentage of the population is opposed to building the landing strip, and can you veto it being built there?
Let me get to the mayor.
Yes, what the agreement arrangements we have with the UFO Site Center is that they will respect our wishes at any time. If we want them to discontinue exploring further of building in Elmwood, they would honor our wishes and leave the Elmwood area.
But so far, the majority wants it.
So far, we have some people that say we're curious about it, we wonder about it, but we don't have anyone that's really come forward and say we absolutely do not want it here. We're very interested in finding out more about it.
Good question?
Yes. Why are we assuming that these aliens will be friendly? What if we give them a warm welcome and they're not so friendly once they come here?
What about that, Philip?
Well, we don't know for sure, and that's the mystery about it.
We still don't even know if they're aliens yet. That's right.
Where do you think they come from? New Jersey? What?
What would attract the aliens to this airport? If they can land anywhere, why would they want to land at the airport?
In Elmwood.
Right.
As I said in the beginning, we feel they're waiting for an invitation. We feel that's the only obstacle between us and a relationship with them. And we intend to transmit a visual picture, something that they can observe from above, which will be welcome. And we intend to then possibly portray one of their spaceships that we have good diagrams on. We think they'll recognize that. We think they'll come there rather than your backyard.
All I've seen are people's drawings, a blurry videotape, and a crummy picture. Where is the proof? All you're getting is a lot of money from this.
Chris?
That's what we're after.
We have been trying for 40 years. For 40 years, we have been trying to get the funding, getting the media, getting scientists to analyze the stuff that we have. I guarantee you, if we can get some real high-level interest, we can probably put together the kind of scientific and proof and evidence that you're looking for.
I'd just like to know who owns the property in Elmwood.
And where can you buy some? Tom?
There's none of this kind of motivation there, but I would like to address what our UFO analyst here has been saying. They've been studying data and collecting facts for years, and we're trying to take a positive step here, and we think we can produce some results, and we hope we can get some support in that area.
$50 million worth of support.
You bet.
Okay, we'll be right back. Assume for a second that Tom's wish comes true. The aliens come to Elmwood. You are in Elmwood. What would you like to say to the aliens as they disembark?
Well, obviously, where did you come from and how large a society do you have?
Okay, what would you like to say?
I'd like to know if they would want a little food. Assuming they don't understand English, would we offer
chicken soup,
a Coke, or a glass of wine, or a...
I'd like to know what they eat, where they're from.
Okay.
I won't want to say anything. I won't want to be that close to them.
Okay.
What do they want? What do they really want?
Okay.
I'd like to welcome them to New York.
But they're going to Elmwood.
I'd just tell them that this is an election year and we normally act better than this.
I'd like to know why they're here.
Oh, I tell them to go home.
We'll see you next time, folks. Thanks very much.